Yeah, that's where we are right now. And today, we're going to break down everything, the dream, the reality, and what Arsenal actually need to do this summer. Let's go. The story. What actually happened? So it started with a report from Miguel Delaney at The Independent. He dropped the news that Arsenal are seriously looking into signing Kvaratskhelia from Paris Saint-Germain this summer. And straight away, the internet went crazy. Arsenal fans were buzzing. And honestly, I get it. Delaney is a credible journalist. He doesn't just throw names out there for clicks. When he says Arsenal are investigating a deal, that means something is happening behind the scenes. It means conversations are being had. It means Arteta and the people running transfers at Arsenal have identified this guy as a real target. And the report went even further. It said Kvaratskelia's people, his representatives, are actually open to the idea of him joining Arsenal, not pushing for it, not demanding a move, but open, which in football is a big starting point. So on the Arsenal side, they want him. On the players' side, there's some interest. Sounds promising, right? Well then, Fabrizio Romano walked in and shut the whole party down. What Fabrizio Romano said. And it's not pretty. This is where things get complicated, because Romano didn't just say it's difficult. He was much more direct than that. On his YouTube channel, Romano said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "My understanding is crystal clear. PSG have no intention to open talks for Kvaratskhelia this summer. They love him, his attitude, his professionalism, his consistency. And remember, he only joined from Napoli 14 months ago. PSG want to enjoy him for much longer. They absolutely don't consider an exit for him in the summer window." Then, and this bit actually shocked me, Romano also said that Kvaratskhelia would probably be the perfect player for Arsenal. He called him the missing piece in the squad. The man literally said Kvaratskhelia would be ideal for any team, but specifically for Arsenal. So even Romano sees the fit. But he's also telling us clearly it's not happening this summer. PSG signed him from Napoli in January 2025 for around $70 million. He's under contract until 2029. They just won the Champions League with him. Why on earth would they sell him after barely 14 months? It makes no sense from their side. Who is Kvaratskhelia? Why is everyone so excited? Let me explain who this guy is for anyone who might not fully know him yet. Kvaratskhelia is 25 years old. He's from Georgia. He first became famous at Napoli, where he was absolutely electric. He was a massive part of Napoli winning Serie A. He was unplayable at times. Tricky, fast, direct, the kind of winger who makes defenders look silly. Then in January 2025, PSG paid around $70 million to bring him to Paris. And he didn't slow down. This season alone, he scored 12 goals and added 9 assists. He plays on the left wing mainly, but he can operate on the right too, which makes him even more of a nightmare to deal with. In the Champions League, the biggest stage in club football, he's been brilliant. PSG won it last season, and Kvaratskhelia was a key part of that run. He captains Georgia at international level. He's consistent. He's hungry. He's 25. So he's at that perfect age where he's experienced enough but still has years of his best football ahead of him. Ask yourself, when was the last time Arsenal had a winger who could genuinely take the game by the scruff of the neck and change it on his own? Someone who, when things are tight and you need a moment of magic, actually delivers. That's what Kvaratskhelia brings. That's why this rumor got everyone so excited. Why Arsenal actually need him now. Let's be real about Arsenal's situation. Because this isn't just about wanting a fancy player. There's a genuine need here. Think about the League Cup final against Manchester City. Arsenal had the squad, they had the motivation, they had everything lined up. And what happened? Their attackers couldn't break City down, they couldn't find a way through. And they lost. That's been a recurring problem. Arsenal can dominate games. They can control possession. They can create half chances. But when they face a team that sits deep and defends with structure, they can struggle to unlock them. They sometimes look predictable. Trossard and Martinelli, and I say this with respect because both have had good moments, haven't been consistent enough at the level required. Both of their contracts run until 2027, but there are reports that Arsenal could move them on. And if that happens, Arsenal have to replace them with someone better. Arteta himself apparently believes that Kvaratskhelia would bring a different dimension to the attack, something about link-up play, something that makes the system reach its full potential. And when you hear that from the manager himself, you understand why this target makes so much sense. Can you imagine Kvaratskhelia linking up with Saka, Odegaard, and Havertz? Seriously, can you imagine that? That front four would be genuinely frightening. PSG might be too stubborn to sell, but Arsenal's interest makes total sense when you look at the gaps in their squad. Does he fit the system? Short answer, yes. Very much yes. Arteta's Arsenal play with a lot of movement and quick combinations in tight spaces. They need wingers who can take players on, hold the ball, and also make smart decisions in the final third. Kvaratskhelia is good at all of that. He's not just a dribbler who loses the ball. He's intelligent. He scores. He creates. He can press from the front. He can track back when needed. Romano himself admitted, and this is a transfer expert saying this, that Kvaratskhelia would be the ideal player for Arsenal. If Fabrizio Romano is saying the fit is perfect, that should tell you something. The only small question I'd have is whether he'd be okay playing second fiddle to Saka at times, or whether both of them could coexist without one affecting the other's impact. But honestly, that's a nice problem to have. Top teams find ways to make top players work together. The real problems. Why this deal is so difficult. Okay, let's come back down to earth for a minute. Problem number 1. PSG don't want to sell. This is the biggest issue. Full stop. Fabrizio Romano has made it clear multiple times now. PSG see Kvaratskhelia as untouchable. He signed 14 months ago. He's helping them win trophies. Why would they let him go? Unless Arsenal offer some absolutely insane number, we're talking 150 million plus, PSG have no reason to even pick up the phone. Problem number 2, the contract situation. He's tied to PSG until 2029. That's 3 more years. He's not at a point where he's running down his contract and looking for a way out. PSG have full control here. Problem number 3, Arsenal's financial position. Arsenal spent over $250 million last summer. They're not exactly in a position to just throw another world record fee at a player who isn't even available. There are reports they might need to sell first before they can buy big again. That changes the calculation significantly. Problem number 4. There are also rumors of dressing room issues at PSG. Some reports have suggested that certain PSG players have complained about Kvaratskhelia being selfish with the ball in the final third. Whether that's true or just noise, I don't know. But it's worth mentioning. If there's any truth to it, that could either mean PSG eventually get fed up and sell, or it could be a sign that he doesn't always make the right decision in key moments. Arsenal don't need that kind of inconsistency. My honest take. Fan perspective. Look, I love this rumor. Of course I do. Every Arsenal fan does. But let me be honest with you. As it stands right now, this deal isn't happening. PSG are too clear in their position. Romano has confirmed it multiple times, and Arsenal shouldn't waste the whole summer chasing a player who isn't available. Because while you're doing that, other good targets are signing for other clubs. That said, I think Arsenal should keep this relationship warm. Kvaratskelia's representatives are open to the idea. That means the player himself isn't completely against it. Football can change fast. What if PSG have a bad start next season? What if Kvaratskhelia gets unhappy? What if the dressing room issues become a real problem? Then suddenly the door might crack open. For now, though, Arsenal need to be smart. Go get your attainable targets. Anthony Gordon from Newcastle has been mentioned. There are other names being discussed. Fill the gaps you need to fill. Don't park everything on one player who may never be available. And here's a question for you. Would you rather Arsenal spend the whole summer chasing Kvaratskhelia and potentially end up with nothing? Or would you rather they target someone more realistic, but still quality? Drop your answer in the comments, because I'll tell you what I think. The best business Arsenal can do this summer isn't necessarily the most glamorous business. It's the smart business. What happens next? Arsenal are still fighting for 3 more trophies this season, the Premier League and Champions League. That's the immediate focus. But behind the scenes, Andrea Berta, their sporting director, is already building the plan for the summer. Romano confirmed that Arsenal will definitely sign an attacking player this summer, maybe even 2, depending on who leaves. The left wing spot is the priority. Trossard and Martinelli's futures are uncertain. Arsenal needs someone who can come in and immediately improve that area of the pitch. Kvaratskhelia is the dream option. Everyone agrees on that, even Romano. But the reality right now is that PSG hold all the cards and they're not playing ball. Watch this space, though. Transfer windows have a way of surprising you. And if there's any crack in PSG's position as we get closer to June, Arsenal will be ready to move. Right. So that's where we are with this whole Kvaratskhelia story. The interest is real. The fit is undeniable. But PSG are standing firm, and Fabrizio Romano has basically told us, don't hold your breath. Arsenal need to be ruthless in the market this summer. They're top of the league. They're still in 2 cups. This squad is so close to being a team that wins everything. 1 or 2 smart signings could genuinely tip them over the edge. Whether Kvaratskhelia ends up being one of those signings, we'll find out. But right now, the story reads like a brilliant transfer romance that might never actually happen. If you enjoyed this breakdown, drop a like and let me know in the comments. Do you think Arsenal can find a way to pull off this deal? Or should they move on to someone more realistic? Gabriel Martinelli is 24 years old. He came to Arsenal as a teenager, barely anyone knew who he was, and he turned himself into one of the most exciting attackers in the Premier League. Pace for days, direct, loves running at defenders, the kind of player that makes the crowd jump out of their seats. But here is the situation right now. His contract runs until 2027. That sounds fine, right? 2 more years. No rush. Except, and this is the important part, he is not expected to sign a new deal. That changes everything. Because if Arsenal do not sell him this summer, they risk losing him for free in 2027 or having to scramble for whatever fee they can get in the final year of his contract. Neither of those options is good business. So the club has a decision to make. And according to reports, Arsenal are actually open to selling. Their asking price? Around 50 million. Now, Fabrizio Romano, who, as you know, does not play games when it comes to transfer news, has confirmed that multiple clubs are tracking Martinelli. This is not just rumors floating around random websites. This is being reported by people who actually know what is happening behind closed doors. Why do so many clubs want him? This is honestly not a surprise when you think about it. Martinelli has qualities that are genuinely hard to find. He is fast, like properly fast, not just a bit quick. He runs beyond defenders, he presses from the front, he works his socks off for 90 minutes. Any manager in Europe would love a player like that. Then you add the fact that he has been doing this in the Premier League and in the Champions League. He already has 6 goals and 1 assist in the Champions League alone this season. That is a serious return for a winger who is not even the main striker of the team. So when clubs across Europe are looking for attacking reinforcements, Martinelli ticks a lot of the boxes. He is young enough to improve, he is experienced enough to hit the ground running, and he comes with a proven track record in top-level football. Can you really blame these clubs for wanting him? I cannot. Let us talk about each club. RB Leipzig are probably the most serious suitors right now based on what is being reported. Their situation is quite specific. They have Jan Diomande, who is one of their key attacking players, but the word is that Diomande could leave this summer for something close to 100 million. That is massive money, and it would leave a serious hole in their attack. So Leipzig are already planning ahead. They need someone who can come in and replace that threat, someone with pace and the ability to carry the ball forward. Martinelli fits that description almost perfectly. According to reports from Bulla News and Mediafoot, Leipzig are not just casually interested, they view Martinelli as a genuine target. Atletico Madrid are another interesting one. There is even talk of a potential swap deal involving Julian Alvarez going the other way to Arsenal. Now that would be absolutely massive if it happened. Alvarez is a proven Champions League winner. He is clinical, he scores big goals. That kind of swap would make a lot of people at Arsenal very happy. But let us not get too carried away. Swap deals at this level are complicated. A lot can fall apart. So we note it, we mention it, but we do not bank on it. Borussia Dortmund are also reportedly tracking him. Dortmund love pace and directness in their attackers. We saw that with players like Sancho, Pulisic, and Dembélé over the years. Martinelli would fit their style. But Dortmund would also need to find the budget, which is always a question with them. Marseille and PSG round out the list. Marseille is an interesting one. They have been spending money lately, and they want to build something serious. PSG can afford almost anything if they really want someone. And let us not forget, Barcelona and Bayern Munich both came in for Martinelli last year. Arsenal said no then. But now, the situation is different. Why is Martinelli considering leaving? This is the question I keep coming back to. Because from the outside, Arsenal are a Champions League club. They are fighting for the Premier League. They have a great manager. Why would you want to leave that? But when you dig a little deeper, you start to understand it. Playing time. That is the main thing. Martinelli is not a guaranteed starter right now. He goes in and out of the team. Sometimes he starts, sometimes he comes off the bench. For a player of his quality and ambition, that has to be frustrating. At 24, he should be in the peak years of his career. He should be playing week in, week out. And if Arsenal cannot give him that, or if they are bringing in another wide player this summer, then it makes sense that he would want to go somewhere where he is the guy. Think about it from his perspective. If he stays and keeps rotating in and out of the team, his development stalls. His value might even drop. Whereas if he moves to a club where he plays every game, he grows, he improves, and his stock rises again. I get it. I do not necessarily want it to happen, but I get it. What does this mean for Arsenal? Right. This is the analysis bit. And I want to be honest with you here because I think some fans are not being fully realistic about this. Losing Martinelli would hurt. Of course it would. He is a quality player, he knows the system, and he gives Arsenal that direct attacking option on the left side. But here is the other side of that coin. If Arsenal can get 50 million for a player who is not going to sign a new contract, that is not a bad piece of business at all. You are getting good money for an asset that could drop significantly in value over the next 12 to 18 months. And if that $50 million or more if the Alvarez swap happens, gets reinvested smartly, Arsenal could actually come out of this in a stronger position than they started. The club reportedly wants to bring in a reliable striker and a quality winger. Both of those positions are areas where Arsenal have had issues. A proper number 9 who scores 20+ goals a season. A winger who is consistently electric. If Martinelli's money brings those two players in, then honestly, it might be the right call. But, and this is a big but, everything depends on who they bring in to replace him. If Arsenal sell Martinelli and bring in someone mediocre, then this will look like a disaster. The recruitment has to be spot on. Mikel Arteta is great at developing players and building a cohesive team. But even the best manager cannot work miracles with poor signings. Is $50 million the right price? Here is where I will give you a slightly different take. $50 million for Martinelli this season. 1 goal in the Premier League. That is a tough sell, honestly. He has been excellent in the Champions League. 6 goals is genuinely impressive. But in the league, his output has dropped, and clubs doing their homework will notice that. So while I understand why Arsenal have set that number, I think negotiating this sale is going to be tricky. Some clubs might push back and say they are not paying top dollar for a player who has not been consistently delivering in the Premier League this season. Arsenal need to hold firm but also be realistic. If a club comes in at 40 million or 45 million, do you knock that back and risk losing him for less next year? These are the kinds of conversations that will happen behind closed doors over the next few months. The Fabrizio Romano angle. Now let us talk about what Fabrizio Romano has said, because when Romano speaks on transfers, people listen for a reason. Romano has confirmed that Arsenal are open to moving players on this summer if the right offers come in. He also noted that multiple clubs are interested in Martinelli and that the situation is developing. That language, the situation is developing, is Romano speak for, this is real. Keep watching. He does not use that kind of language when something is just noise. So the fact that he is tracking this one tells me this is not just random speculation. There are genuine conversations happening. Romano also mentioned Arsenal making calls about potential incoming transfers, which suggests the club is already planning what happens if Martinelli does leave. They are not sitting back and hoping for the best. They are preparing. That is at least reassuring. You want to know your club is being proactive rather than reactive. A few questions for you. Okay, I want to hear from you on this one. First question. Do you actually think Arsenal should sell Martinelli? If someone puts 50 million on the table, do you take it, or do you hold on and hope he rediscovers his best form? Second question. What about the Alvarez swap? Would you do that deal? Martinelli out, Julian Alvarez in. Is that an upgrade for Arsenal? I think there is a strong argument that it is, but I am curious what you think. And third, who should Arsenal target if Martinelli leaves? Do they go and get a winger replacement directly, or do they use the money on a striker and shift their other attackers around? Drop your answers in the comments. Genuinely want to know what the Arsenal community thinks about this one. My honest take. Look, I will say this clearly. Martinelli is a good player. He has been really important for Arsenal over the years. But if he does not want to stay, if he is not signing a new contract, and if clubs are willing to pay good money for him, then you sell. Simple as that. Football is a business at the end of the day. Sentiment is nice, but it does not win trophies. Arsenal need to keep building. They need to keep making smart decisions. And sometimes that means selling a fan favorite if the conditions are right. What I care about is what comes next. If Arsenal use this money wisely, and they have shown in recent seasons that they can sign good players, then this could actually be a turning point rather than a setback. The squad is already strong. Add the right striker and a proper wide player, and Arsenal suddenly look even more dangerous going into next season. So no, I am not going to panic about this. I am going to wait and see how it plays out, but I will be watching very closely, and you should be too. That is the Martinelli situation in full. Big clubs circling, Arsenal open to selling. A contract ticking down, and a transfer window that is going to be one of the most important in recent Arsenal history. But hold on, it is not that simple, and any Arsenal fan knows this better than anyone. Because while the league position looks beautiful, the form around it has been a bit rocky. Their only Premier League game in nearly 6 weeks was a 2-0 win over Everton in March. Everything else? Cup football. And in those cup games, Arsenal have been knocked out twice. First, they lost the Carabao Cup final before the international break. That one hurt. Then, just this past Saturday, they traveled to Southampton, one of the teams fighting at the bottom of the league, and lost 2-1 in the FA Cup quarter-final. A last-minute goal from Shea Charles in the 85th minute. Honestly, it felt like a punch to the stomach. So let us be real for a second. The FA Cup is gone. The League Cup is gone. The only cups left are the Premier League and the Champions League. Everything is riding on those two now. And you know what? Maybe that is not a bad thing. Maybe Arteta's squad can now put all their focus where it matters most. No more rotation headaches. No more tired legs from extra fixtures. Just full focus on winning the league title that has been 21 years in the making. But here is the question I want to ask you. Do you actually believe this Arsenal team is ready to close it out? Drop your answer in the comments. Genuinely curious. The FA Cup exit. What went wrong at Southampton? Look, I am not going to pretend this loss did not matter. It did. Southampton are struggling in the league. They are a team fighting to stay in the Premier League. So losing to them in a cup quarter-final at their ground, thanks to a late winner, that stings. That really stings. But here is my take. Yes, it was bad. Yes, it was embarrassing in some ways. But Arteta had clearly been rotating. He was protecting key players. He was thinking about the bigger picture. The bigger picture is this. Arsenal have not won the league since 2004. That is over 2 decades of hurt. If you have to sacrifice the FA Cup to give yourself the best chance of winning the title, you take that deal every single time. So I am not panicking. Not fully. But I do think it shows that Arsenal still have a mental fragility in cup knockout situations. When games get tight, when the atmosphere gets tense, they can still buckle. That is something Arteta needs to fix. Not just for this season, but for the long term. The Champions League. Can Arsenal handle Sporting CP? Right. Big one. This Tuesday, Arsenal traveled to Lisbon for the first leg of their Champions League quarter-final against Sporting CP. Now, Arteta is described as quietly confident about this tie. And honestly, I get it. Sporting are a good team, but they are not the scariest name you could draw in the quarterfinals. Arsenal could have faced Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, or Manchester City. They got Sporting. That is a favorable draw, full stop. But here is the thing. Arsenal cannot afford to go into this tie half switched off after the Southampton embarrassment. The worst thing that could happen right now is losing the away leg badly in Lisbon. That would kill the momentum completely. Arteta needs his best players firing from minute one. Saka needs to be Saka. Havertz needs to be smart and physical, and midfield needs to control the tempo, because Sporting can hurt you on the counter if you give them space. This is a huge week for Arsenal, and I genuinely think they will get through. But they cannot be sloppy. They cannot switch off. Do you think Arsenal go through to the Champions League semi-finals? That is the question. Let me know. The ease situation and Gabriel Jesus' honesty is actually refreshing. Okay, now this is the story that made me smile this week. Eberechi Easy. What a transfer that was in the summer. When Fabrizio Romano dropped that "here we go" tweet back in August 2025, the whole Arsenal fan base went crazy. And rightly so. Easy chose Arsenal over Tottenham. He picked his boyhood club. He came for around $60 million. It felt like a dream signing. And look, there have been brilliant moments. 5 goals against Tottenham. That is not something you forget in a hurry. Spectacular goals against Bayer Leverkusen, Crystal Palace, and Mansfield Town too. The talent is undeniable. But if we are being honest, his first season at Arsenal has been inconsistent. There have been long stretches without a goal or an assist. He has faded in games. He has dropped too deep when he should be higher up the pitch. For a player of his quality, there have been too many quiet nights. Now, here is where it gets interesting. His teammate, Gabriel Jesus, recently sat down with Rio Ferdinand on his YouTube channel and basically said he has been riding Eze every single day in training. Jesus said he keeps telling Eze to demand the ball at least 20 times per game, to shout for it, to make himself available, and to stop dropping into a deep midfield role that is not his game. Jesus even joked that Eze is probably a little bit fed up with him at this point. Annoyed. Peased off, as he put it. And I love this. I really do, because this is what great dressing rooms look like. Senior players pushing younger players. Not in a harsh way, but in a, "I see how good you are, and I refuse to let you waste it" kind of way. Jesus himself has had a tough time with injuries at Arsenal. He has not been the player they hoped he would be when he signed, but his leadership, his mentality, his influence on those around him, that stuff is priceless. You cannot put a number on it. And this advice he is giving Eze, it is completely correct. When Ez is on the ball in dangerous areas, he is almost impossible to stop. He has the pace, the skill, the left foot that makes defenders nervous. But when he drifts deep, when he tries to be a number 6, he becomes just another midfielder. He disappears. The version of Eze that Arsenal need is the one who is demanding the ball 20 times a game in the final third, not the version sitting 30 meters from goal, waiting for others to do the work. If Jesus can get that message into Eze's head, and if Eze acts on it in these final weeks of the season, Arsenal could have something special on their hands going into next year. Because a fully confident, fully assertive Eze playing in his best position, that is a nightmare for any defender in Europe. So, Ebbs, if you are reading this somehow, listen to Jesus, mate. He is telling you exactly what you need to hear. The Julian Alvarez transfer talk. And why it is more complicated than you think, right? This is the big one, the one that has the whole Arsenal fan base divided. Julian Alvarez, Atletico Madrid striker, World Cup winner, one of the most complete forwards in world football right now. He has scored 40-plus goals for Atletico since joining them in 2024. He presses like a machine. He links play brilliantly. He scores big goals in big moments. This guy is the real deal, and Arsenal want him. Badly. Reports suggest Arsenal have already had a bid worth around $105 million rejected. Atletico said no. They are not making it easy. But the story is not dead. Far from it. Fabrizio Romano has been updating on this situation for weeks. He confirmed that the future of Alvarez is very much a summer story. He is not moving in January, but come the summer transfer window, things could get very interesting very quickly. Romano has said that there is genuine Premier League interest and that things could happen around Alvarez this summer. Now, pundit Ali McCoist made an interesting point. He suggested that Chelsea might actually be a better fit for Alvarez than Arsenal. His argument? Arsenal's squad is so deep that Alvarez would struggle to get regular game time. You have got Victor Gyökeres as the main striker. You have Kai Havertz, who can play as a false nine. You have Leandro Trossard, who has played through the middle. Where does Alvarez actually fit? And look, I understand the argument. I hear it. But I disagree with it. Here is my take. Yes, Arsenal have options up front. But has any of them consistently delivered the kind of explosive, reliable goal threat that a title-winning team needs? Gyökeres has had a difficult debut season. Havertz is brilliant in his own way, but he is not a natural striker. Trossard is fantastic, but he is not a number 9. Alvarez would not just add competition. He would upgrade the position completely. He is the kind of striker who wins you the Champions League, not just the Premier League. He makes everyone around him better. That is exactly what Arsenal need. But here is the honest problem. The price. Atletico are reportedly demanding close to $129 million. Some reports say even higher, closer to $150 million. That is a serious amount of money, and Arsenal already spent $64 million on Gyökeres last summer. Can they really justify spending over $100 million on another striker in back-to-back transfer windows? Reports have also suggested that Arsenal could use Gabriel Jesus and Gabriel Martinelli as part of any deal to bring the price down. Jesus is clearly in the final chapter of his Arsenal career, much as I appreciate him, and Martinelli has not been consistent enough this season. But even with players going out, this would be a massive financial commitment. There is also one more complication. Alvarez's first choice apparently is Barcelona. His agent has been in contact with the Camp Nou. He wants to play for them. But Barcelona's transfer business is on hold because of presidential elections. If Barcelona cannot get their finances together, Arsenal and Chelsea are right there waiting. The latest from Romano and other sources is clear. If Barcelona fail to make this happen, Arsenal are the most likely Premier League destination. They are considered the front-runners ahead of Chelsea. So here's my honest analysis. Alvarez at Arsenal would be a game-changing signing. He fits the system perfectly. He can press. He can hold up play. He can score all types of goals. He would unlock the best of the players around him. The risk? If it does not work out, or if Gyökeres and Alvarez cannot coexist, you have spent over $200 million on 2 strikers in 2 years, and neither of them is performing. That would be a disaster, but I think you take that risk. Because in football, the gap between good and great is often just one player. Alvarez could be that player for Arsenal. Do you want Arsenal to sign Julian Alvarez this summer, even at that price? Let me know in the comments. This is a debate worth having. The bigger picture. What does all this mean for Arsenal? Let us zoom out and look at what all of this actually tells us about where Arsenal are right now. They are 9 points clear in the league. That is the headline. That is what matters most right now. But they have Champions League to focus on. They have a squad that has been stretched across multiple competitions. They have a player in Eze who has not fully clicked yet, but could be about to. They have transfer decisions ahead that could shape the next 5 years of the club. And they still have to go to the Etihad Stadium. Manchester City at home with everything to play for on their side. That fixture is coming. It is going to be electric, and Arsenal need to be ready for it. The title is in their hands. That is the reality. 9 points is a massive buffer. Even if City win their game in hand, Arsenal are still in a brilliant position. They just cannot afford to throw it away. Arteta has built something special here. The foundations are strong. The culture is right, the squad is deep, and now, with the summer transfer window approaching, they have a chance to add one more piece to the puzzle that could make them genuine European contenders for years to come. This is an exciting time to be an Arsenal fan, not just because of the league position, but because the whole project feels real now. It does not feel like nearly. It feels like actually. So let me wrap this up with a simple question. This Arsenal team, right now, in this moment, do you believe they are going to win the Premier League title? Not hope, not dream, believe. Because after 21 years, after all the near misses, after all the heartbreak, I think this might genuinely be the year. 9 points clear. Champions League quarterfinals. A squad with leaders like Jesus pushing the next generation to be better. And potentially one of the best strikers on the planet on his way to North London this summer. The title is right there. Arsenal just have to reach out and take it. Stay locked in, Gooners. The best is coming.